you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate you taking the time out. Before giving them a little bit of an introduction, do me a favor and give them a quick elevator pitch on who you are.
Yeah, so Brent Weaver, CEO and founder of UGURUS. We run a coaching and training program for kind of early stage agency owners. So kind of in that 1 to 10 person stage, sub $1 million, help them around attracting leads, winning deals, delighting their clients so they can scale their business and create some freedom. And also I do some work with Cloudways, who's a big managed hosting provider, as a brand evangelist. And I'm going to partner in another agency called Unlimited WP. They do white label WordPress work for agencies. So got a few things going on, but UGURUS is kind of our main thing. I'd love to help the Cloudways team expand their brand footprint.
And you are a brand ambassador. I think they call them Mavericks. Is that right? Or is that
That's right.
How it works?
Yeah.
Okay, good deal.
I think most people can understand what the idea of like a brand ambassador or brand evangelist is, but they do have a brand, we are the Mavericks on the Cloudways team, which is super cool because there's actually a group of us. And it's been really fun to collaborate with other influencers in the agency space. I mean, I've been doing a lot of that over the last 20 years, but it's been a really awesome team to be working with.
Yeah, I love that. It's almost like a State of the Union thing we did together. It was, I think there were 2 or 3 other people on there as well. That was a really cool episode. That was a really cool segment. But I like
just kind of talking about what's been going on within the agency market. I mean, there's been a lot of challenges this year. I think no matter what kind of business, if you own a small business or if you own any kind of business, right? There's definitely been some challenges this year. And so it's cool to kind of come together as, yourself and the other Mavericks that are on that team to just talk about what's been going on within the agency space, right? I mean, digital has been blowing up this year.
Oh yeah.
So is life, right? I mean, when people, I talk to some of my clients and it's like, they're trying to figure out like, do I grow my business or do I make sure that somebody's watching my kids, right? And it's there's some trade-offs this year.
Yeah, well, you saw that right before this. I was like, you left your charger where? Anyways, yeah, I agree with that. Matter of fact, I think we had to reschedule one of them.
Right? That was, exactly. You were like the...
Yeah. That's one thing I figured out. I'm not a teacher. I'm a great coach, but I'm not a teacher. 2 dramatically different skill sets. So, well, tell us a little bit about Cloudways. And, for anybody out there who has not heard, Cloudways is awesome, by the way, but for anybody who doesn't know who or what Cloudways is or does, what do they do?
Yeah, it's a managed cloud hosting platform. So, you've got some of those big cloud providers out there. Amazon would be an example of that. And if you're like me, when I go into my AWS control panel, I mean, there probably isn't anybody in my business that is more dangerous than I am. And so when it comes to launching client websites, managing servers, things like that, I think as an agency owner, somebody who wants to be focused more on getting my clients results, that cloud layer, which you can get really amazing hosting environments if you can take advantage of that. But one of the challenges I think a lot of agencies have is trying to figure out how to manage that. You might not have enough clients or enough servers to warrant having, $100,000 a year sysadmin that's on your staff full time. And I know that's something that our agency struggled with. So having a partner like Cloudways, whether you're doing sites on, WordPress sites or, Magento or other hosted sites, right? Having those sites hosted through a cloud provider, and then Cloudways is that management layer. So you're not having to have sysadmins and stuff like that on staff. They're providing you all that infrastructure to manage that kind of stuff. And so it makes taking advantage of the cloud infrastructure like 10 times easier.
Oh my gosh, I learned that lesson the hard way because I had he was my vice president of technical, so he oversaw everything, real technical for my company. And boy, he was our sysadmin. We had, 7 or 8 dedicated servers. And so I'm telling you, every single day, 4 or 5 hours, just keeping securities and everything going like that. We outsourced that and our productivity went through the roof. So this leads me to my first question. Do you have any hosting war stories? I have one that I would love, I can't wait to share it, but I want to hear yours. What are your hosting war stories out there? How does that correlate over to Cloudways helping someone? So.
I always tell people, whenever somebody calls me with some kind of server, or I go to meet with a client and they're like, hey man, I can't meet today. I'm dealing with this huge server outage or something, or my client got this, my client was on Oprah or whatever. And we, it blew the servers up, right? I'm always kind of thinking to myself, man, I got that t-shirt. Like I got that one, right?
It was mine was the Today Show, but totally got that T-shirt. Yeah. Oof.
So we had, I think like a lot of people, like a lot of web agencies in particular. Now, some marketing agencies might not be as connected with the web infrastructure, but I know somebody who kind of is very native, web 1.0 native. We were building a lot of client sites. It's pretty logical to say, hey, let's offer hosting, right? Because you're doing the site builds and maybe you're getting paid, hopefully getting paid really well on that stuff. But then it's like, oh man, I could make a little bit of recurring money on the back end, which I think is a really great intention to set in the business, especially because hosting kind of feels like passive revenue or passive income. I don't really believe there's many passive income streams in the world, but hosting is kind of close to it, or you can make it like that. And so we started offering that to our clients. We really weren't charging a lot, but we offered it. And we piled website after website after website on this server. And it was in the basement of some co-location facility. And it was like a server with a hard drive in it. And it ran like a workhorse for probably 7-ish years. And then one day it decided to stop working. And we had, I think, about 55 client sites on this server. And so it went down. Like when I say it went down, like the hard drive failed. There was no backup of the hard drive. We had client files stored at various, stages of the actual build process with those clients. So some sites we had the data for that was maybe like 4 months old. Some was like 3 months old. Some was a couple weeks old. Some was like a year old. So we basically had to get another server up and running and go through and more or less kind of rebuild a lot of our client sites. So we didn't really have a good backup system in place. And it was bad. I tell people, like, we stayed up straight for 48 hours, like 2 full days straight, getting everything at least back to where there was a pulse for our client sites. Some things we couldn't get like back up and running. Like there's even an Exchange server running on that machine, which just sounds like insanity, like 50 client sites plus a whole bunch of people's emails. And that was all like toast, right? So we were like air freighting the hard drive to like this place that was like a clean room, and they were going to suck all the data off of the hard drive manually and kind of rebuild it. But that process was going to take like a week. And so we had to go and just build all this stuff. So we did that. And it was awful. It was awful. I went home after 48 hours of no sleep, and I wasn't even like sysadmin guy. I was like phone triage guy. Like, let's just keep these people from showing up to our office with like weapons or something, like,
yeah.
It was so bad, right? Which I totally get, right? But when people's websites go down, it's bad. When people's emails goes down, like things start happening that gets a little crazy. So I remember being at home, and I had finally I was like just really on the way to like hitting my bed, and I got a message from my CTO, and he said, "Hey dude, that new server that we got set up and running at GoDaddy, guess what?" What? He's like, "Yeah, RAM failure. It's done. We got to start over," right? Which thankfully we had, already kind of organized a lot of stuff, but it was kind of like you were on this like marathon run, right? You just ran the 26 miles or whatever. And they were like, "Oh, hey, just kidding. We actually going to do another half marathon." So we, all came back to the office, and we, got everything back up and running. And I calculate, Lee, that whole situation probably killed about a month of overall productivity. Like what I'm talking about is like this really hardcore like moment where 3 full days were like totally scorched. But when I look at like the impact that situation created over the next several weeks and months of just triaging with clients, trying to rebuild stuff, chasing stuff down, like all that kind of stuff. It was this huge crater on our business, and we had to do some real serious soul searching. Yes, it was great to make this extra few $1,000s a month in hosting revenue, but like we kind of ended up having to write off an entire month of our business growth and a lot of other initiatives, right? So it was definitely a big challenge we had to go through.
Well, and then the negative PR, the ill will with your clients. I mean, it's just the ripple effect from that kind of just bleeds out for months. You probably heard about that 2 years later from a client. Do you remember? And so it just kind of puts a bad taste in people's mouths. For sure. I tell you what, my story is almost identical, except for the fact that the hard drive didn't crash. It was hacked by a Turkish by a professional Turkish security agency. And it was what's called a defacing is what it's called. And so we didn't get into the hardcore, personal HIPAA type or privacy data kind of stuff, but it was defacing. 32 clients wake up one morning and they see the 1919 Russian Bolshevik Revolution picture of the 4 or 5 guys that are in there, whatever, I can't remember. It's got a sickle in it and everything. It's kind of, well, you're like, what? And so they all are like, emailing. And next thing you know is it cost, long story short is it took about 3 weeks because we did not have backups like we should have. It was not managed. It was just a dedicated server, the $199 a month kind of thing, And here we go. My sis asked me, all of us, for 2 to 3 weeks of building these sites. It cost me probably about $32,000 to $35,000 and all of the ill will and everything else. And so whenever you have a bad situation in hosting, when it goes bad, it's really bad. It's not, it's not like, oh no, my image is not showing on my website. This is like a big, big deal. So I tell you what, there is absolutely zero fun about that situation at all. So how does Cloudways keep that from happening? I mean, what do they do? I mean, how does Cloudways help you from falling into that situation? So.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically, first you have the cloud versus like our situation, which was server in a basement somewhere. And I know there are marketing agencies and web agencies that still operate within some level of co-location. So I think at the very first layer, at that time when we came out of the situation, it took us a while to make this transition, but we said, okay, we're a really small shop and our hit by a bust factor is like really low. Like our number is really low. Like the amount of people that we could have quote unquote hit by a bust in our business and like lose, everything was like really low. Like my partner and I kind of had keys to the kingdom. Like it was really him and I that had access to everything, and people would come in and kind of, help us on that, which means our bust number is potentially 1, maybe 2, right? And so we looked at that and said, hey, this is like critical infrastructure for our client's business. And we're in a situation where we kind of have keys to their infrastructure, their email, their websites, their e-commerce, right? We've got clients that are processing millions of dollars in orders a year. And if one of us gets hit by a bus, like the client's kind of screwed. And so we decided like we need to move our infrastructure to where a larger company, we can kind of leverage the power of a larger infrastructure. So if we end up getting hit by the bus, like there's still an infrastructure component, right? So we started moving a lot of our stuff to the cloud. The problem with that, of course, is, it's easy to like do backups and scale. The challenge, of course, though, is having that sysadmin. So we had a guy who was really a .NET developer, and he doubled as our sysadmin, right? We didn't have enough money to have a full-time sysadmin, which meant when he was busy on projects, he wasn't sysadmining. When he was doing sysadmin work, he was, not busy on projects. And that actually there was a lot of conflict with that within our business model, because server maintenance type stuff was really unpredictable, and it was hard to know like when that was going to happen. Whereas his development work was more consistent and predictable. So it was kind of like this consistent and predictable, like daily grind of doing development work, like, coincided with this like really unpredictable, oh wow, a server went down. Like I need to spend the next 2 days getting that back up and running. Or, hey, Windows is Windows servers put out a big update. I need to spend the next week getting all of our servers up. And I'm like, what the heck? I just sold this huge custom dev project, right? So, so that was like,
exactly
that was
how
kind
it
of
happens too. So.
The like one of the core problems, right? Like we didn't know our business model. We weren't clear on what our business model was, right? We thought to offer hosting meant that we had to do sysadmin work. So I think what companies, that what Cloudways does beautifully is gives you access to that cloud hosting layer, but also provides that management layer on top of it so that you don't have to have any sysadmin people. So one of the things they've actually innovated over this last couple of months is launching their agency partner program, which I'm happy to talk about that in a little bit, but giving agency owners dedicated support where you essentially have a sysadmin on your team to help you run all that stuff with Amazon, where it's more of a conversation, not I need to understand load balancing. I need to understand, backups. I need to understand how to, scale up my servers or scale down my servers, or look at, how much demand my servers are under and figure out, do we need to add more infrastructure or not, right? So they provide all of that kind of stuff so that your team doesn't have to have that sysadmin resource, right? You can have people that are more abstracted from that. And to me, that's huge, right? Because the last thing you really want as an agency is to have one person in your business that like is
Might
hard to replace.
or get hit by a bus, So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's, it's so funny you use that term because I literally use that exact same term at my agency. It's kind of interesting. The more I get to know you, the more I'm like, damn, dude, we really, we're living almost like parallel lives in a completely different universe kind of thing. But a lot of what you did is exactly how I built it. And we went through a process similar to where we picked, everybody that if they got hit by a bus, what would happen? And we had a term called mouths to feed. So if I got hit by a bus, I had X amount of employees. Each employee had 2.5 mouths to feed, whether a fur baby or a baby, a mom, or whatever it is, right? And so that we had about 150 mouths to feed, okay? And so I would, not including our clients, just employees and everybody else. And so we had to figure out a way to do that. And it was probably one of the hardest things. It was very difficult. So one thing I want to add to that is that, by the way, a sysadmin is not like an intern or a low-level employee. That doesn't cost you the top premium money for your agency. It's always going to be one of your thought leaders, one of your really high-end people that are actually typically helping to kind of grease the wheels for everybody else to get their job done. So when that sysadmin or your lead developer, lead technical individual all of a sudden has to drop everything for a week to go rebuild a server or Microsoft updates or whatever the scenario is, now you're pulling out the thought leader, the person that's going to empower the other 10 people to do their job. So you take 10% of 10 people's productivity plus the 100% of their productivity gone, you do the math on that, and all of a sudden the numbers, you're like, whoa, man, I cannot believe how much money we just lost in this last week because the thought leader, again, you don't have the lowest level person going to fix. When a server goes down, you don't put a rookie on it. You put the best person you can find as fast as possible. And we always found that to be a major, and I mean a major thing. The entire company would bog down to a crawl whenever all of a sudden we had major sysadmin problems. Is this kind of similar over there on your end, or?
Yeah, I mean, normally that person is a lot of times, at least for us, and this is probably for a lot of you listeners, somebody that's been around the business long enough to know all of the little nuances of hosting all of these different, websites and things like that. And it's really hard to replace that person who's in two very distinct seats. So for us, it was like lead developer and sysadmin was kind of the seats that this person who'd been with us for a long time had kind of fallen into within the business, right? Which going out on the market and trying to, like, let's say he went away because he got a job or whatever, which actually ended up happening, right? He ended up getting recruited as basically a CTO level of a really, really big privately held health company. And replacing that person who's like an amazing lead developer, oh, and by the way, also has these, a long history of doing, sysadmin type work is actually really hard, right? It's kind of that unicorn person. And
super expensive. Yeah.
It's expensive, but it's also hard to find. And I always tell people, like, anytime you have that team member that basically has become a unicorn in your business, like, it's best to try to separate that. It's hard to figure out where to find a unicorn. Like if I said, hey, Lee, where do we find unicorns? You'd be like, I don't know. Like, like Fairyland, like
Fairyland,
like,
Disney,
right?
go to Disney, maybe. I don't know. Figure it out. Yeah, I don't know.
Right? But if I said, hey, where do we find a horse and a rhinoceros? You'd probably be like, oh, horse, we'd go to the stables. Rhinoceros, we'd go to the zoo, right? Like everybody kind of knows generally, like if I wanted to see one of those animals today, you probably would have like, a little bit of problem solving time. And within a few hours, you could take me to those animals, right? And so what we found was we had this unicorn seat. And whenever that happens within your business, I think the risk factor goes up like crazy because they're really hard to replace, whether it's COVID, whether it's a job that they get recruited away from, whether it's some other life event, right? Or maybe you realize that you don't want them working for you anymore, right? And so in talking about this people component of your business and relating it to Cloudways is one of the main reasons why, like, I personally have gotten very involved in trying to evangelize this company because I feel like they solve that problem for agencies that want to offer hosting and web care to their clients without having all their clients on 50 different systems, is that it takes away that necessity to have that dual person inside of your company, right? You can now leverage their infrastructure for that higher end technical role, they're going to do it as part of their ongoing fees to you. So like, you know, depending on how many servers you have and all that kind of stuff, obviously you're going to pay them more money, the more servers and stuff that you have. But they're going to be able to provide that kind of service level support. So I can tell you, like, when we just migrated all of our stuff over to Cloudways, like, I'm not an Amazon hosting guy. Like, we have some legacy servers, and I had to get in there and do some SSL work. And like, it was, I felt like I hacked the internet for about a couple hours. This is some stuff that was pre-Cloudways. I had to go in there and make the changes and do it. And I felt like I was doing, like, it was correct. At any moment I could have taken down, you know, all these servers, right? And it was just a reminder of like, oh yeah, this is why we've moved all of our stuff and have somebody that I can send a Slack message to and be like, hey, something's up with this server, or I've got an SSL certificate that needs to be updated, or I've got some, you know, we're getting a lot of traffic. Can we replicate this server, right? I can send those messages to somebody and it just gets taken care of versus, you know, you having to have that person kind of internally, right? So that's kind of like, what's that, Lee?
You had a good topic a while ago about how about just having the right infrastructure in place, right? So whenever these companies are dedicated to doing this stuff, they've got you know, tools that you don't have. SSH, and I mean that's a very lower level, but I mean at their level, they can go in one terminal, go straight into everything and see everything and do it all up to where you have to go into login here, back out over here, and it's a nightmare for you to get it done because you don't have the infrastructure access that they have spent probably millions of dollars to get into place. And so having that level of infrastructure makes that whole role a lot easier. It's just not logical for you to do that at a web or a marketing agency. That's why outsourcing this is such a big deal, and I could not agree with you more. We've been burned on this, and I know what I'm trying to do here, and I know I'm assuming what you're trying to do here is to help agencies from getting burned on this. It's not if you're going to get burned, if you're hosting this stuff in a dedicated server, or God forbid in your basement still, okay, hopefully that's not happening, but if you are attempting to manage that dedicated server, it's consuming a lot of time, it's consuming your thought leader's time, and it is going to burn you. Okay, that's what hackers do. They come after guys like you because you don't have that security infrastructure in place like these big hosting companies like Cloudways does.
So one of the things that I think is interesting on this, Lee, is, and we try this. So what I hear from a lot of people is, I don't touch hosting. I just let my clients host. Or, you know, again, for marketing agencies that aren't touching the website, more traditional companies, or maybe they're focused more on ads, less of a deal. But if the marketing company or web agency is focused on the website, dealing with the website on a regular basis, one of the things I hear all the time is like, well, I just let my clients host wherever. It's they just pick their host and then we're separated from them, which we tried that. And we were like, oh, you know what? Maybe we should just get out of the hosting business, right? We're a web company, we're building websites, but let's remove ourselves from this layer, right? And what ends up happening which it's a great idea on paper. And what ends up happening is every client you bring on ends up choosing a different host, even if you recommend stuff. Maybe they stay with your legacy host. Maybe they choose one of your companies, but they're on different plans. And so every time you get a client, basically they're on their own infrastructure. And so we try to keep track of that, right? Like, oh, well, we built systems for keeping track of people's logins and what host they're on and, you know, how things are set up and all that kind of stuff, which then creates complexity in my business, right? I'm abdicating responsibility. I'm saying, hey, I'm not responsible for this, right? And the theory is by abdicating that and managing that complexity that we're going to be able to be removed from any responsibility when things go wrong. So we did that. And guess what happens, right? We're the web agents. Right?
Yeah, I was going to say, when their email goes down, dude, they're not calling hosting. They're calling you, okay? They're going to call. They're definitely going to call you. So.
They've got my cell phone number.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have, you know, CEO of GoDaddy's cell phone number. So I'm on speed dial, and CEO of GoDaddy is not on speed dial. And so what we found was we had to deal with it anyways. And that was like the kicker for us. Like we did this for a year, got everybody onto different hosts, and it actually created, even though we had that big server outage where it was a big pain in the butt all at once, it almost became a death by 1,000 cuts, where now it was like constantly we're having to deal with these little complexities and these nuances. And so finally one day I'm trying to track down this like registrar/hosting relationship. They've got our client's site held hostage. They won't release the registrar, unlock it. They won't release the DNS. And I'm talking to this company, like, you know, staying up really late, talking to this company in Melbourne, and I was on hold for hours trying to sort this out. And this is, you know, after tracking this company down for like days and days and days, And I'm like, this is just ridiculous. Like, this is worse, but it's happening in these little increments, right? So we just said, you know what? We need to define, if a client's going to come work with us, we need to have certain kind of minimal viable recommendations or requirements for how we work with clients. And so because they were calling me anyways, I was like, well, we might as well control the infrastructure, right? And so that was one of the other reasons that we said, look, let's make money on hosting. Let's make a premium on it, because you can go to GoDaddy and charge $10 a month for hosting, or you can host with me for $200 a month. But guess what? You're going to still call my phone, right? You've got that kind of insurance policy on that. And then having that kind of middle layer to where you're not having to have highly technical people. We could focus on getting our clients results, which is really where, as an agency, you were going to make money. And I think about this as like a house having a foundation. Like, we can't build that beautiful house without having a foundation. So the hosting infrastructure for us as a web and marketing agency was, if we got that figured out and it just became a non-issue, and it was like all of our clients were on the same infrastructure, same type of infrastructure, and we had a lot of control on that, it created a lot of efficiencies in our process. And then we could focus all of our attention with the client on helping them to get results.
Definitely. I love it. And, you hit a good point. I hear a lot of my coaching students, they're like, oh yeah, we can't charge you more than $29. That's what GoDaddy charges for hosting. I'm like, are you GoDaddy? No, you're not. No, you're not. Are they going to, you got your cell phone number? In other words, what you're charging for is the care plan, the support plan, right? And so make sure you get that in there. It's a great residual model. And if you build that out properly, you can get anywhere from $97 to $490 and even more, way up. I mean, I see some care plans into the thousands of dollars. Now, that's unlimited text content. There's a lot that comes with that, you know what I'm saying? But it's a huge reoccurring revenue base, which I think might be a perfect segue into the Cloudways agency partner program, right?
Yeah. So they've spent a lot of time on creating a program for other agencies. And so they've called that the agency partner program. So, if people are an agency and they're thinking about maybe getting a better infrastructure for their sites, whether it's, WordPress or one of the other platforms that they support, that program, and it's currently in its pilot. It's a pilot program, so it's kind of on wait list. It's not necessarily, depending on when this airs, open for the public. But what they found when they went and talked to agencies, and this is super important, because a lot of companies launch partner programs, and they just kind of go, oh hey, we'll call it a partner program because we want more agencies to sign up, right? And they never actually go and talk to agencies. As you mentioned earlier, right? They've done a really good job of recruiting some influencers to kind of work on their Mavericks team, and we kind of work in an advisory capacity with them. But more importantly, they took some of the advice from the Mavericks and they went and they did customer development and user experience research with agency owners and said, hey, what do you guys actually need from a managed hosting provider? And they came back with kind of three main things. Well, first of all, kind of Jerry Maguire moment, like show me the money, right? Like I think agencies wanted to have better pricing, right? Because they feel like, hey, maybe one agency is bringing 50 sites or 10 servers or whatever. They're not just bringing one server at a time. So we should get a better kind of deal. So depending on where you kind of come in at, there's some preferred pricing for people that are in the agency partner program. And then the second big thing is support. So having a team that, depending on what level you're at within the agency partner program, there's kind of different additional layers of support. So I mentioned like having them on Slack, for example. I think that's maybe in their middle and top tiers. Maybe don't quote me on that, but they've got, that kind of personalized level support available and some expanded support. And then having some exclusive access to some other resources. Like, so I've been going in there and coaching with some of the agency partner program members, helping them to grow their business, solve problems outside of just the hosting bucket. And there's a ton of other things that they're doing as a company. So those kind of exclusive benefits, the discounts, the additional support have all become a part of that agency partner program vision.
And this whole program was built from the ground up for agencies. So in other words, whenever you get in there, they're going to have, I don't know if I could call it white label pricing. In other words, they're going to kind of give you white label pricing and you go out there and mark it up. These are good care kind of product lines that they can go out and resell. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that I like personally, and we were with another managed WordPress host. And, I won't say who that was. It was kind of a premium brand in the marketplace. And They do work with a lot of agencies, but one of the challenges is that their model is based on like the number of sites that you have. So as the amount of sites that you have goes up, right, like you're going to pay a lot more. And they actually kind of bill based on these tranches. So like sometimes that extra site all of a sudden triples your hosting bill, right? And so one of the things that helped us when we moved to Cloudways was that it's more based on like you're paying for the servers within Amazon's infrastructure. So their pricing is kind of layered on top of that.
Okay.
And if you have, 50 sites that are all low traffic sites, right? I mean, you could put those on a single server and then you could have dedicated servers for more of your high traffic sites. Like there's a lot of customization in there. And so depending on what your monthly spend level is, you're going to get better pricing with Cloudways. So it's not based on sites.
Okay.
I call attention to that because as an agency, your profit margins can go up dramatically if you're not having to pay on a per site level and you're paying more on a per server level. So that was a big shift for us where we cut our cost by 70%.
Wow. That's straight profit, right? I mean, when you cut costs by 70%, that goes straight to the bottom line. So, I mean, I love the sound of that. That's good. Really like the sound of that.
It took some labor and some time to make the transition, which I always want to make that, make people aware, right? I'm talking about the monthly like revenue to expense kind of line, right? But like it did take some time to migrate over. So it's not like we got that, we're going to get an ROI on it like immediately, but like it's kind of like refining a house down to a lower rate. Like all of a sudden, like maybe you're going to spend a little upfront to like help you make that transition of your own time to make that switch. But then ultimately we're going to save a ton of money over 3, 5, 10 years.
Yeah, definitely. So, okay. I like it, man. That's good. I like it. I tell you what I'm loving is all these agency partner programs that are coming out. And again, I want to make sure and kind of give the difference as well. A lot of people say they have a partner program, but it's basically it's in name only. They don't actually, they don't go out there and put the money and the time and the effort, resources into developing out a true partner program. Okay, so Keep has one. Active Campaign's developing theirs out right now. I think Pardot's about to start to develop theirs out. Salesforce has had one forever, but these are dedicated resources, and it makes all the difference in the world. I think you're an Infusionsoft Keep guy, and that partner community over there is the value. Okay, I mean the platform's great. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of things I would fix about it. There are a lot of things I love about it, but that holds true for every CRM on the planet. Okay, that holds true for all of them. But having that level of partner community that's dedicated to partners and give that level of support and that peace of mind is really it's very important. There's no way I could have built my agency without having that partner community there for support and things like that. And I hear all the time agency owners, feel like they're on an island. They don't have anybody to help. And so when you get involved in these partner communities like this and these resources that are dedicated to you, okay, it can be a real game changer, not only just from having somebody there to help, but getting these additional, having somebody like Brent that you can go get some help from, I don't know if it's for free or not, I'm not sure how that works, but under the Cloudways brand platform, that is a game changer for your business. I'm telling you, 5 minutes with that guy, one thing he could say can literally change how you conduct your day-to-day business for the next 20 years. And that's not an over-exaggeration. It's true. I do it in my coaching calls every day. I know you do it every day. And so getting that level of partner program and partner access is don't underestimate the value of that, I guess is where I'm going with that. It's immense, the value of that. So.
Well, Lee, I think what the Cloudways team will see is always people signing up saying, "Hey, I need to get some of Brent's time to help me, help him help me grow my business." So we'll see.
We're gonna put an OTO in there like that. We'll figure it out.
We'll see what happens to my calendar. Thanks, dude. But no, look, I mean, I think so their agency partner program, they have been they tried some of this in the past, and they've been working on relaunching it. They put a lot of time and effort into it, multi-month user experience, customer research. Project, and they're listening to their partners. And I think, when I've been talking to their team about the future of their partner program and looking at what they have as an opportunity, and I think that partnership community, right, is something that is going to definitely come out of this as the program grows. Right now, they're like 1,000,000% focused on that support. Yeah. Building in those offers to help agencies increase profitability, and then starting to create some of that exclusive value that they just offer to their actual partners. So we're just kind of experimenting on that exclusive side. We have been doing some live coaching and some support. I'd love to do some other community type activities that we've been pitching to them. But they're definitely really focused on that support and the discount side, which is why they're kind of slowly rolling out the program to make sure that they have the team to back up the agencies they're signing on.
That's smart. Under promising, that's smart. He was rolling it out, logically over time. So, it didn't build Rome in a day, right? So it takes time to get things like this in place. And so I do know that I got in early, again, with the Infusionsoft community and other communities, and that put me kind of at the front. That kind of put me, I don't know, kind of put me in more of a big dog status, because I did get in early. I think when I got in, there were, I don't know, couple of hundred partners, maybe, kind of thing. And there wasn't a whole lot of a community there at the time. So it ended up slowly evolved into where next thing you know, it's, I don't know, 1,500 to 2,000 partners now. I'm guessing at that number, probably somewhere around that number. And it's fun to have something, like I said, to grow with you, right? And again, a lot of agency owners out there are just kind of like, you hear it all the time as well. They're on an island. Nobody understands how I'm doing this. And again, I'm not saying Cloudways is going to become your therapist. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you have like-minded people that you can get support from and help from, and they bring a lot of really valuable resources like Brent. And I was on one of their State of the Unions as well, and they bring a lot of resources like that to the table for you. And that is a really big, I didn't understand the value of that when I was building my agency, and now looking back on it, I do know the value of that, and I really hope people, when they listen to this, can see, obviously they can help with all the hosting and really the peace of mind, that comes with having a company like this behind you, supporting you, but also having that community and those resources and all that fun stuff can really help you kind of with your education, your growth, just everything. It can help you with a lot of that. One connection out of a community like that can put add a zero to your bottom line pretty quick. So.
Totally.
Well, how do you, okay, well, let's wrap up this. We've got a final question here. How do you find peace of mind in I was interested. I saw this question on there. You had one, hosting war stories, revenue. This is all about business. And then all of a sudden, right in the middle, you put in peace of mind for your agency. I'm like, wait a second, dude, that doesn't flow. So I had to kind of wrap that around a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, at least in my little pea brain, it didn't flow. So, but I love it because peace of mind, that's difficult to find. So, what you got? I want to hear it. So how do you find peace of mind in your agency?
Well, obviously, it's not having servers in basement of co-location facilities that are at risk of crashing, right? I'd put that right up there with not paying your taxes kind of thing. I went into my conference room one day, and we were having a hard time. I think as a lot of agencies, balancing that feast and famine kind of roller coaster when it comes to revenue, where sometimes it felt like we were bursting at the seams, just had so much work, and then other times we're like, oh, people are sitting around here asking me what they need to be doing, and I don't have a project for them. And my business partner at the time, brought me in the conference room, and he was like, hey, dude, I don't have peace of mind in our business. And I was like, neither do I. And he was like, well, I have a theory of why we don't have peace of mind. And he put this slide up on the conference room projector, and it had the number 3%. And I was like, what's that? He's like, well, that's how much revenue we get per month that is recurring and predictable. And a lot of that came from the low dollar hosting, right? It was high risk, low dollar, right? We were really exposed around this, right? And part of that came out of that, realizing that came out of that server crash, right? It was like, it really wasn't a lot of our revenue. It was recurring and it was nice, right? But it really wasn't a lot of our business's revenue because we were charging commodity level prices. We're trying to compete with GoDaddy. So that 3% number, right, is low, right? But what that actually means, if you flip it, 97% of our business's revenue, we had to go out and hunt every month, right? Or, quarter or whatever, right? Some of our projects, we'd get a project, it'd span, 3 months or 4 months or whatever, but 97% of our revenue was not necessarily predictable. And so we looked at it, we're like, well, gosh, man, we're putting all this time into hosting. Like, I thought we were doing recurring revenue. Like, it doesn't add up to more than 3%. And it was like, no, it doesn't. And so we set an intention in that room. We didn't solve all of our problems, but what we did set was an intention. We said, we want to grow our recurring revenue. And hosting was kind of part of that. You mentioned earlier kind of this idea of like web care, maintenance, et cetera. So building systems, whether it's recurring revenue or systems around that, they can create revenue predictability. Some of that revenue end up being recurring. Some of that revenue is just in having really good client nurturing and farming systems, so that our clients that we had signed on, instead of them doing one project with us every 5 years, they were continuously spending with our company. But over the course of about 3 years, we increased our recurring revenue by just setting this intention. Now, I could get into like more details on how we did this, but by setting the intention of growing our recurring revenue from 3% to 50% of our revenue, while our total revenue per year grew by 300%. So that basically after 3 years, we were like, wow, half of our revenue is predictable recurring. It covers all of our expenses, most of our salaries, and, maybe there was some money that we needed to pay, like my partner and I, that came in more variable from projects and stuff. And then we had profits on top of that, right? But like 50% of our top line revenue was coming in through recurring and predictable means, which, didn't solve all of our problems. But that peace of mind problem, like it started kind of fading into the background where I didn't feel as stressed. Like if a bad lead came in, like back in the day, like I'd kind of do this, I call it, stuff for money. I'd be like, oh man, this is an SFM job. Like, let's take it because we need the money, right? And after we had 50% of our revenue from recurring, it was like the SFM work would come in and be like, hey, you know what? This isn't a part of our niche, right? This isn't a part of our strategy. Like, honestly, we don't need to take this work in, right? So we started getting choosier, which of course creates a virtuous cycle versus a vicious cycle. So we got choosier. Right. Which meant we got better clients, which meant our overall revenue grew. So no matter how much of our recurring revenue we started to really work on and grow, we actually were growing rapidly as a business because we were able to make better choices. And so that's really, when I think of peace of mind, I think for most businesses, whether it's 100% of your business model strategy or a percentage of it, having that recurring revenue, and if it's not recurring, it's somewhat predictable, is really, really important. And so, yes, hosting was a part of that. Web care was a part of that. But once we had those two keys in place, we started focusing more on kind of this growth-driven design philosophy and saying, hey, how do we actually help our clients to market, grow their traffic, improve their conversion rates, all that kind of stuff. And that was like, to me, the really fun work that got us the headlines, right? That got us the marquee placements, that got us the great results where clients couldn't stop talking about us. Very few people refer you because you have an amazing hosting infrastructure. But if you don't have that, it's really hard to have, the cool higher end stuff, right? Because if you go do a big launch for your client and all their sites go down, that's not super fun, right? So having those foundational components in place then gave us the opportunity to get really creative on some results-based work. And that to me is where we started getting a lot more peace of mind as a business.
Yeah, there's different mindsets in business. Rites of passage is kind of, what I'd call them. And at first, you're honestly survival. I mean, man, hustle, just get some damn money in the door. Truth be told, I've been there. I'm sure it's probably how you guys started. We all kind of get started in this kind of hustle mentality, but you really need to work very aggressively to get out of that survival mentality as fast as possible. And that is that peace of mind mentality that I think Brent's talking about here. And I'm gonna tell you right now, we had something similar. We never got the reoccurring revenue up to the 50% mark. That would have been a Herculean effort to get it there, just based upon the way our model was, right? But we did aggressively go after that starting, I can't remember, probably 3 or 4 years before I decided to sell it. And we got that number up. It was a multiple 5-figure big, it was very, very, very good from one of them, and multiple other people were sending them as well. And there is no doubt a wonderful feeling whenever you go to bed at night knowing that there is a huge percentage of basically your operating expenses and everything's covered, and it helps at home with your wife. It helps in so many different ways, because whenever you're surviving and that pressure is on you, okay, and take it from someone who has had health issues because of the stress, it will impact you, and it will have waves and ripples that kind of bleed out in just really unforeseen consequences. Things happen in a weird kind of way that way. So that's some outstanding advice. And if you're an agency owner out there, young, veteran, pro, rookie, whatever you are, listen to what Brent just said, because what he just said is an absolute, again, game changer. So focus aggressively on that reoccurring revenue and use Cloudways to help you do it. So I think that's some damn good advice. So I just had my little ding go off, knowing I got another appointment here I got to get over to. So give us, we've actually done one or two of these, like one of these, I think. Whatever. Anyway, point being is, at the end of my podcast episode, I like to give everybody what I like to call a shameless plug moment. So this is whenever you just throw out whatever the hell you want. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Keep it above the line. Don't get me wrong. But but shameless promo, man. What do you want to do? Throw it out there.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're, for me on this one, I mean, I'd love for more agencies to explore Cloudways as a hosting provider, as a managed hosting provider. So whether you're on WordPress or you're using another system that is hosted, looking at them to provide that infrastructure would be probably a smart move. We were able to cut our expenses by 70%, and our sites doubled in speed. So we benchmarked everything before and after. Wow. And we feel really good about that. And their team has been an absolute joy to work with. And so I can highly recommend them. The agency partner program, they have a really long URL for it right now, but if you just look up like Cloudways agency partner program, you'll find a little landing page for that. I think it's cloudways.com/agency-partner-program.php right now. Okay. So maybe just check out Lee's show notes for that.
Yeah, we'll figure that out and get that in the show notes somewhere. So yeah.
But look, they have all the details on there, and what would be a good next step would be just to apply for their wait list for that program. And that way you can chat with their team, see if and how that service could work for your agency. At the very least, I'd say apply for the program, and that way you're at least getting into that workflow for when they open up additional seats for it. See if that platform can help you to do the things it has for us. And yeah, that'd be a good next step from listening to the show today.
Perfect. If I had a mic, I'd drop it, but that's really, really good. So Brent, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate everything you do for the agency community. I've been following you for a couple of years now. I think I stalked you for about 6 months before I started my coaching business. And, there's only a few of us out there that are really trying to do the right thing by agencies. And I think, what I'm talking about. There's a lot of people out there just selling smoke and mirrors and making promises that they don't really care about the agencies out there. And it's easy to see that you do. So I just want to thank you for that. And I really appreciate you coming on the show today and helping us spread the word about Cloudways. So.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for having me, Lee.
Hello, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And of course, let's get you over to the next episode. If you have not already, make sure to subscribe to my podcast. And if you are not following us on YouTube or in our private Facebook group, make sure to get over there and check those out as well. And of course, we're also always available at marketingagencycoach.com. Look forward to seeing you at all those channels. And I hope you're having a wonderful day.